Sir, you are in live. Good to go.
Good evening. Good evening from the days of quarantine to rest of the world, because this is the time when both the speaker as well as moderator is in quarantine, and this is something what we can do even during quarantine. And in fact, this is the fourth of this kind of web CME organized by Intas Pharmaceutical in association with Indian Psychiatric Society, Assam State Branch. During this COVID-19 pandemic, the incidences of suicide has increased manyfold, and many people have talked about various theories regarding this sudden rise of the incidences of suicide. And another important factor is the role of media. Media can act like a double-edged sword. Most of the time, people talk about the ill effects of media, like that of the copycat suicide or water effect, when most of the incidences of suicide or attempts of suicide rather increases following sensational news item of any celebrity committing suicide or attempting suicide. And of late, most of the people are aware that few of the Bollywood celebrities have succumbed to death following suicide. And today also, there was one such report. People say that the media has to be very much sensitive in these issues, how to deal with or how to publish this matter, because nowadays media has got a very great role. Because in earlier days, when we talk about media, then it was only the print media. Now print media, then your television media, as well as even the social media. So the media itself is very vast, and it has got a very wide range of audiences. Not only to talk about water effect, media can play an important role in creating awareness among general people to look into how to deal with or how to look into the cues related to suicide, because suicide is the most common preventable cause of death, and media can play a very important role. And this positive impact is like that of negative impact is known as water effect. This positive impact is known as Papazeno effect. So to deal with these issues, may I have the pleasure of introduce today's speaker, Dr. Mustaqim Ahmed, who happens to be my colleague here at Assam Medical College, Dibrugarh, who did his MBBS from Assam Medical College itself and did his MD Psychiatry from Guwahati Medical College. And currently he is posted in Assam Medical College and working in the capacity of assistant professor in our department. So may I request Dr. Ahmed to please start with his topic.
Sir, you're not audible. Sir, you have unmute, please unmute your mic, sir. Dr. Mustaq, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Dhruvo, and good evening, everyone. And also thank you, Intas Astra Division, for their giving me this platform to share this presentation. So, as you know, the topic is suicide, role of media.
You're not audible, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes,
very much. Am I audible? So, suicide, as you know, is an act which has a fatal outcome. It is deliberately done by the person who die by suicide, and with the knowledge that this will lead to a fatal outcome. And it is a complex phenomena. because if you go by any psychosocial, any psychiatric disorder, you see there are lots of issues, psychological, biopsychosocial model, if you know. So there are some biological vulnerabilities, and there are social issues, lots of psychological issues are there, the personality factors are there, which may lead to a person taking his life by suicide. So there is also there are also insurmountable disparity between expectation and outcome, and also there are tremendous pressure on mind leading to such a conclusion. So first of all, I like to go to some statistics. So number of suicide globally in young in 2016, if you go, then you see that the number is increasing as the age is increasing. For it is most in case of 25 to 29 years of age, 29 years of age. And both male and females, there are, it is seen that in this age group, the younger age group, it is more. And suicide, if you see, the suicide is the leading cause of death among the 15 to 29 years, 29 years of age. And it is a second leading cause of death after root injury. If you take the both sexes, and if you take the females, then it is the second most common cause after the maternal condition barriers. And in males, it is the third condition after root injury and interpersonal violence. And if you see, as you know, that the suicide, the depression is an important risk factor. If you see the graph from the year 2005 to 2014 in adults and young adults, you will see that the number of episodes of major depressive episode is correlated with the increase in suicide. So depression is an important factor for the young adults and adolescent group. So coming to the epidemiology of in India among the youth, I am mostly concentrating on the youth because you know that this is the most vulnerable group in suicide attempter and suicide who die by suicide. And also, not to mention that suicide is also more in case of around 60 to 65 years of age. But this group is very vulnerable because they are very impressionable at this age. And in a study which among 1 lakh person in South India, among 10 to 19 years of age, suicide accounted for 50 to 70% of all deaths. All deaths in males and female. And the average suicide rate for girls was 148 per 1 lakh, and for boys is 58 per 1 lakh. And it is seen that suicide rate for teenagers has been increasing dramatically since 1950 to 1990 worldwide. And 89% self-inflicted injury and harm is found in this adolescent group. And also in 2016, the National Mental Health Survey of India came out. It shows that there is a high suicidal risk is prevalent in India among the urban metro, among the widowed and separated person, among the lowest income groups, then the 40 to 49 years, and also the female. So going by, if you see the world picture, the India is among the most risk country while we compare the suicide risks among different countries. It is that India has the is 15 per 1 lakh population who may die by suicide. So it is a red in the red zone. And crude suicide rate, if you see in global averages, is in both sexes is 10 by 6 per 1 lakh, and in male it is more 13.5, and female is 7.7. And India, if you go by the country distribution, India is has this highest comparison to this average of 10.6. It has 50 or more than 50. So in India, you see in 2016, 80.5% suicide occurred in per 1 lakh population. in that is in males, and in females also there is a considerable person like 14.5% suicide rates in 1 lakh population. So first then so now we are coming to the media. What type of media we have? We know the traditional medias, the newspapers, the televisions, and radio. But now the near media has come after the advent of the internet and various internet-based social media. If you see that the social media includes various models, like in Wikipedia you see these are collaborative projects, and there are many blogs, micro blogs like Twitter, then the content communities where you can create content and upload, like in YouTube. Then there is social network, everybody knows that Facebook, Instagram, those are, and also virtual game world, the World of Warcraft, then the virtual social world, second life. And if you remember, around 1 or 2 years back, there is a game came in virtual media, like this Blue Whale game, which has resulted in many younger deaths by suicide. So difference between this traditional media and your media, that the traditional media, there is a one-time kind of thing that, but and it is not modifiable. But the newer media you can modify. The traditional media has risk that once it comes into the circulation, you cannot modify or that thing, and it is there with the person. So a newspaper which covers a suicide story, the person may any person may take this and keep with him. By similarly in the television, however, it is a little bit different. Once it comes a news about suicide stories, then it is very one time here, or one time event. But that is in the previously. But nowadays, if you see the mushrooming of different so much these news channels, like yesterday I'm going to this seen that there are 400 news channels in India. So, and also that there are 24/7 channels, and the news they repeats every hour. So nowadays the television has is not like the television in the past. So news circulates often in the often in a 24-hour period. Similarly, in radio, that once news comes, it is for one time, but it is not modifiable. So once you circulate news about just suicide, that it may affect the person concerned. So coming to the media, how and media and suicide, how the media can impact on a suicide of a person. It may help it may be a negative, have a positive effect by creating awareness about suicide prevention, but it may also help in dying by suicide by giving many avenues to the person how to die suicide, how to or exposing them to suicide stories, stories of the celebrities or important person, which may affect the impressionable minds. And also research has seen that there are the style of presentation in the media and portrayal of suicide and suicide behavior may affect the persons who is having suicidal ideation or who die by suicide. And this is called copycat suicide. And also they may they may the media portrayal, media may say that media may normalize the suicide event, and it may seem that it is an acceptable way to get rid of the adversity. So media reporting suicide may not affect the majority of us. However, people in despair, who is in depression, who is having some other psychological problems, may be influenced by this, by what they read or view or hear. The effect may be profound. Any person able to identify with a person who die by suicide. an FCK report, particularly one which provides detail about the method of self-harm, may increase the vulnerability of a person of taking the similar course of action. So now coming to some historical evidence of contagion, what do we have? As Dr. Dhruva has already said about the water. Water, you know, is a character in the Sorrows of John Water, a book by John von Goethe, where the Water died by suicide. From that, it is that term come the water effect. After the launching of this book, it is seen that there are many young deaths by suicide in Germany and Denmark and Italy. Then you know the Marilyn Monroe famous who died by suicide, and after her death, there is 12% increase in suicide in the month following her death. And then there are various example of this kind of thing, that when the suicide has been cluster of suicide has been associated around a particular suicide which has been projected in the media, which has come in the media. So this is one where this is you can see it in this graph. This is part of suicide after publication of the suicide of a German goalkeeper in 2019. You see that 81% increase in the days immediate to this death. So anything while we are saying that the media may impact suicide in a person. So what are the evidences we have? Research have shown evidences for the impact of sensationalized media coverage on suicide. The impact is found to be greater on people with similar gender, age characteristics as a disease, or when the celebrities are involved. And several of these reported significant clustering of suicide defined by temporal spatial factor among teenagers and young adults. Go Little found that the relative risk of suicide following exposure to another individual suicide was 2 to 4 times higher among 15 to 19 years old than among other age group. And several studies also showed that the copycat effect of media reporting are primarily found for vulnerable people, such people as people with depression and those who have already engaged in self-harm. And also there are considerable evidence that suicide stories in the mass media, including newspaper articles and the television news reports, are followed by a significant increase in the number of suicide. And also other research that the magnitude, it is found in the research that the magnitude of the increase in suicide following a suicide is proportional to the amount, duration, and prominence of the media coverage. And it is found that it peaks during the first 3 days and then leveling off about 2 weeks, but sometimes it may last longer. Stake in 2000 found that the suicide of an entertainer or political celebrity were 14.3 times more likely to find a copycat effect. He also found that suicide, in contrast to real suicide, in contrast to fictional stories, were 4.3 times more likely to find an imitation effect. The impact of suicide history on subsequent completed suicide has been reported to be the greatest for the teenagers. And an important aspect of the presentation of suicide in the media is that it usually oversimplifies the causes. That is that the suicide has occurred because of any broken relationship, or it has occurred due to failure in examination. They overlook that many psychosocial issues or even the psychiatric morbidities like depression, substance abuse, personality factors. Then another research on the suicide contagion from fiction. Fictional dramatization, like in serials and in TVs, has been also associated with increase in suicide, but also in films. Also, you can it has led to increase in suicide. Like you know, after the movie, it is Aug-2020, where the characters die by suicide. There is increase in suicide in some parts of the India. So all the time I am saying about the impact of media in leading to a suicidal behavior in a person or dying by suicide. But media may have also have a protective effect. If it is found that the media protective effects maybe through the newspaper blackouts, or reducing the amount of reporting, or also the quality of reporting, or addressing the positive mental health. Then if you communicate where the person may get help in case of your mental health issues, or if they have suicidal ideation, that it may have also positive effect. So the explanation why the media impacts on suicide. Here, the social learning theory, where one learns the behavior by seeing the behavior of others. So in an impressionable age, the one learns that there are troubled people who sees that there are troubled people who solve their life problems. Like they're having a breakup, or they're having any terminal illness, or they are dishonored. They may they took their life. So they may learn from their stories. Then they may identify, there is a differential identity. They may identify with the character of the story, or the person who died by suicide. And also their audience mood. What is that? It is found that the stories, suicidal issue, when appear in some condition, the suicidogenic condition, then there may be high suicidal rate. Like when there are high employment issues, high divorce rate, in those situation, on those time, and the suicide, if the suicide stories are published, the audience may have a more increased suicidal rate. And you can compare this thing to the present day scenario, like the present pandemic, where the persons are having present pandemic situation, while the people are having high anxiety, high stress level, also while they have joblessness, many people have lost job. So if a story is published in the media of a suicide, in this situation, that it may lead to a suicidal behavior. So how to tackle the problem? So there are definite, we can do many things. How we to get to improve on this media impact on the suicide. There are positive preventive effects, as I have already described. So there are definite guidelines, and in many countries it has found that the employing that these guidelines, media guidelines, there are decrease in the suicide rate. And WHO, World Health Organization, has come up with a very good guidelines for media personnel, how to improve on their portrayal of suicide history in the media, and how to describe a case of suicide in the media. So now I am going to tell you about the guidelines, the WHO guidelines, what it has, and all the guidelines are based on this World Health Organization guidelines. So they said WHO is saying that you should be responsible in reporting. So while you report a suicide, you provide accurate information to the person who is having suicidal ideation, or who has self-harming behavior, where to seek help, or if you have any mental disorder, if you have suffering from depression. So how to seek help from any professional, where the support group where he can get. They can provide them the crisis helpline. They can give the numbers of social prevention centers, or other health and welfare workers, or also the many self-help groups that they can provide those things. And and they should give information where to seek help. Should include also services that are recognized in the community as being of high quality, and which are available 24/7. And also, this WHO says that educate the public about the facts of suicide and suicide prevention without spreading myths. There are various myths that in our society. Many say that suicide is because of the person's weakness, but they don't know that suicide, the behavior, this comes from arise from many psychological disorder like depression, personality disorder, and other mental disorders. Also they don't know that this societal behavior improves with treatment. And also they have the myths that if people talks about suicide, then the person is definitely going to take his life. But and that way they don't bring up the issues of suicide among the person. So WHO said that we have to be a myth, the media should act as a myth buster. And research has also shown that media reports that repeat these myths are more likely to trigger imitative behavior. And to report on how to prevent suicide, and to include a message that people who are suicidal seek help, and to indicate how to assess that help. And the media should report stories of how to cope with life situation or suicidal thought and how to get help. If the media provides personal narratives of people who has overcome these adverse circumstances and suicidality, it may lead to positive behavior in the other person who may be suicidal, and they may come up with positive coping strategies by emulating these persons, imitating their positive coping strategies. And stories, they should provide stories that integrate educative materials explaining how to get help when faced with seemingly insurmountable difficulties are also encouraged. And they say, WHO says that the media should apply caution when reporting particularly a celebrity suicide. A celebrity suicide, as you know, is a very newsworthy for media persons, media outlets. But glorifying a celebrity death may suggest that the society honors such behavior and thus may promote suicidal behavior in others. Such reports should not glamorize the suicide or describe the suicide method in detail. But rather, you should focus on a celebrity's life, his positive aspect, how he contributed to the society, and how their death negatively affect others. Then reporting details of the suicidal act or providing the simple reason that why he committed suicide, it should not be done. And also is the media should apply caution when interviewing the bereaved family members and friends. You know, they are the suicide survivor. Even the journalists they said they are also suicide survivors, because they cover the suicide from a very close quarters in their stories. So such person may be having, the family and friends may be having anger, grief, and guilt of not being able to save the persons or their loved ones. So you should be cautious while interviewing this person, because this may also ignite in them their suicidal behavior, or they may lead to more guilt or more depression. I don't know about India, but in other countries, some countries, there are definite guidelines and code of conduct in interviewing such persons. And the media should the media professional, as I said, they may be called suicide survivors, or they are indirectly affected by the suicide case. The media organization, they should also look at the media professional whenever necessary. They should have the debriefing opportunities, and there should be a mentoring arrangement in place for those persons who may be affected by the covering of these suicide stories. And the media personnel should not hesitate to seek help if they are anyway affected. And there are guidelines. The guideline also said that do not place stories about suicide prominently, and do not unduly repeat such stories. Prominent placement and repetition of these stories quite often may lead to subsequent incident of suicidal behavior than the mere presentation. And there is if possible, then if possible, the stories in the newspaper should be covered in the inside pages, like the third and fourth pages, or maybe in the bottom of the pages, or rather than the front page or at the top of your inside page, so that the person is not immediately face this story, the reader. Similarly, while broadcasting stories about the suicide, the presentation should be in the second or third break of the television and news, not immediately when the news begins, or the further down the order of the radio reports or online posts, not as a lead item. And also, caution should be exercised regarding the repetition or while the updating the same stories again. And definitely, media should not sensitize the suicide, should not use the sensational wordings, also should, at the same time, should not normalize a suicide, but they should provide a constructive solution how the problems could be overcome, should have been overcome by the person. And so we should be judicious while using the language. Like, for example, you should not use a term like suicide epidemic. Very often we use the suicide, maybe now that there is suicide epidemic is occurring, but unless and until we definitely have this statistics, we don't can say suicide epidemic, and we should not use this word. Rather, we should use increasing suicide rates. And also, we should not use language that misinform the public about suicide, normalize it, or provide simplistic explanation for a suicide. Then we should not use commonly this term in our everyday language, or covering other issues like the political suicide in case of politics, so that suicide does not desensitize the public of its gravity. Then the unsuccessful and successful suicide, those terms should not be used. Rather, we may use non-fatal suicidal behavior. And also, very often we use the committed suicide, which implies a criminality thing. So it will create a stigma, so that the person who is derived by the suicide of a loved one, they will feel stigmatized. Also, it will derive a person who is having suicidal ideation to get help. And also, we should use, you may be hearing that I am using the person is taking, like, using the word died by suicide. So we should use that the person is died by suicide or took his or her life, rather than committing suicide. And the media should not describe the method as explicitly or in detailed description, because very often it is found that the person who has imitated the behavior, he has also used the same method as the person in the suicide stories. In Hong Kong, a few years back, there are issues of suicidal behavior by hydrogen sulfide. After a person, after a media report come out that the person may be died by inhaling hydrogen sulfide. So many death occurs, cluster of suicide occurred after that suicide case. And also, in overdose case of medication overdose, the media should not use the brand name or how much quantity or what is the nature, where it affects, or what combination the person has taken. And caution should be also exercised when the method of suicide is very novel or rare. As I said about the hydrogen sulfide, that may be issue in that case, because that is a rare and novel method. And because new methods are spread by the media quite often with a sensational heading, and it may be then shared in a social media by the social media users. And there are the guidelines about guidelines about the site, that we should not provide details of the site and location. There are some sites in every, I think every state or every district, where there are the common people say it is suicide site, but media should not use that suicide site. In you see in the Guwahati, you have a bridge or in a rooftop, which is quite often used for suicide. Which is known to everybody, but still the media should not use and the term as a suicide site, so that the people does not get the idea. And particular care should be taken not to promote such location as suicide site by, for instance, using sensationalist language to describe them, or overplaying the number of incidents occurring at that location, because there may not be so much of suicide, but you are saying that there is so much in that place. Whenever everyone goes, there is increased number of suicide. And similarly, when there are suicide in educational settings or specific institution like prisons or in hospital, we should not sensationalize the news of it, because it may affect the other student or other patients, in the hospital or in the prisons. So, sensational headlines is a very big no-no, and we should not use the term suicide in the headlines. Rather, we may use the term unnatural death in those headlines, or so simply the person has died, because because in the description it will be there. And very often in the media, what is there? The headline is written by one person, and the substance is written by the another person. So they should have collaborative effects. So who has written the substance in the main text, he should collaborate with the who has written the headline, so that he should know what he has written in the headline, whether he has written suicide or other sensational items, words in the headlines. And there should not be any use of photograph, video footage, or digital media links. And great caution is required in the use of picture of a person who has died by suicide. If images are used, their family members' permission should be definitely taken. The images should not be prominently placed and should not glamorize the individual or the suicidal act. And research has shown that picture associated with suicidal acts can be deactivated by vulnerable leaders later, such as during a personal crisis, and may then trigger a suicidal behavior. Suicide notes, final text messages, social media posts, and emails from a deceased individual should not be published. But contrary to this, we have seen many social media users are sharing these suicidal notes, final texts. If you go by a few days of suicidal attempts or suicidal stories. Then the guidelines also say the media person to use the sources which are very reliable information, which provide a reliable information. So you should not get which is unreliable. They should get the information from the government side or the WHO side to corroborate their stories, or when they want to provide the statistics or data in their reporting. So they take information from the reliable sources. Or also they may take advice from local suicide prevention expert like a psychiatrist or a psychologist when preparing stories about suicide. And your very national, I said, regional suicide prevention organization also, who have specific contact details for media, and media should utilize those resources also. And on one big international association, the International Association of Suicide Prevention provides many of these guidelines and many of these support to the media. And they provide background information for the media on preparing stories on suicide, including the list of suicide prevention services, also the guidelines of reporting on suicide. So WHO, the digital media, if you see for WWC, the same guidelines has WHO has given the same guidelines as the traditional media guidelines. And this what the WHO guidelines says that it is important that the digital media should avoid the hyperlinking of suicidal material in the social media. Also, video or audio footage or social media links to the scene of a suicide should not be used, particularly if the location or method is clearly presented. In addition, great caution is necessary when using picture of a person who has died by suicide. And also, search engine optimization effort need to be carefully balanced against the use of harmful wording, particularly when it comes to writing the headline. As is true for the traditional media, data visualization should be carefully checked with government statistics and other. Education policies should be established by the manager of media platforms for dealing with the potentially suicidal content in the comment section of digital media, such as the online newspaper or print newspaper website, and for timely response to content relating to suicide. So now some protective media impacts before I conclude my presentation. Some protective media impacts I'll talk. Edger and colleagues showed that the introduction of media guidelines on the reporting of suicide on the Vienna subway has resulted in a reduction in sensational reporting of this suicide, and in turn it has affected 70% decrease in the rate of subway suicide, and also 20% decrease in the overall suicide rate in Vienna. Also, in Austria, the repeated distribution of this guideline resulted in an improvement in the quality of reporting of suicide and also a reduction in suicide. Suicide, and also the positive effect is found in a large area. Also, studies from Australia, China, Hong Kong, Germany, and Switzerland have similarly shown that the media guidelines are positively related to the quality of reporting on suicide. However, the effectiveness of media guidelines depends on their successful implementation. Ninder Krottenhaler and colleagues found that a specific class of articles that focus on positive coping and mastery of crisis was associated with decrease in suicide rates in the geographical area where the published media reports reached a large proportion of the population. This protective media potential has been labeled, as Dr. Dhruvo has said, as a Papageno effect. Effect after the characters in the Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. Following this first study on the Papageno effect, some other studies have identified protective impacts by media materials that address the constructive coping and provide information on suicide prevention. So lastly, the digital media, some facts about digital media. Very little there, as you see, most of the research has been done on the traditional media. The digital media, though has come off, has been there for a few years, but the research has not been that robust. But it's still ongoing. Whatever research is available, about the impact of suicide-related depiction on online suggests that both protective and harmful effects are there of the digital media. Digital media are considered a potentially valuable resource for person in need of help when suicidal, because online media sites are easily accessible and are often used by a young person. Also, person at risk for suicide frequently reporting feeling less alienated when using social media, and sometimes report that their online activities have reduced suicidal thoughts. And this is particularly the case for activities on website and message board that offer constructive help and actively avoid normalizing or condoning suicidal behavior. However, the potential to normalize suicidal behavior, the access to images about suicide or suicide method, and the creation of communication channel that can be used for bullying and harassment are of major concern. You can see that cyberbullying and cyber harassment is a big concern in digital media. Many of young person has died because of cyberbullying. Because one issue with cyberbullying is that in physical bullying, you can get once the you can get out of the person who is bullying you. There is no more effect on you. But cyberbullying, the process continues. But through text, through emails, the perpetrator may be cyberbullying the victim. So it is a big issue in digital media. Also, similarly, cyber harassment also. So we should be very cautious in this aspect of digital media. Also, there are also many pro-suicidal sites that describe the specific different suicide method and encourage suicidal behavior or recruit individual for suicide pacts. An increasing number of case studies indicate that message board can serve as a tool for learning about suicide method and can promote suicidal behavior in vulnerable person. But still, we have many way to go to check these issues. How to say, because of huge number of person using these medias. Also, but if you see the Facebook has recently come up with some algorithm by which they can immediately know if a person is sharing any suicidal ideation or suicidal materials or suicidal behaviors by that algorithm, computer-based algorithm, and they can immediately inform the person's person's relatives or friends or law enforcement authorities. So other digital platforms should also come up with this algorithm, so that or other avenues. So finally, now, as you have seen, there is a strong support for the contention that sensational media report about suicide can lead to subsequent additional suicidal behavior. Why this is additional behavior? Because it is seen that you can say that this person may have died by suicide, even if the media report is not published. But when comparing the statistics, we have seen that it is not so. Actually, there is additional suicide because after the suicidal rate has not decreased. So studies of potential protective effects of responsible media reporting of suicide have started only quite recently, and the evidence of the benefit of this type of reporting is currently emerging. It is still a new thing of the protective effects of the media. So media professionals should exercise caution in reporting on suicide, balancing the public right to know against the risk of causing any harm to them. So with these few words, I conclude my presentation. Thank you all for your patience hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Indeed, media and suicide, this is a very vast topic. And as just prior to the beginning of the CME, I had one message. Actually, this message was from Dr. Rajani Parthasarathi, who has pointed out very correctly that, I quote her, media has a very big role in preventing suicides and creating mental health awareness. Yes, definitely. But the problem is that nowadays the whole concept or the earlier boundaries regarding various types of media is no longer there. If you take even a print version of a newspaper, that has got a digital edition and which can be circulated through various social media. Therefore, that clear-cut boundary is a problem, and therefore the whole research methodology to deal with or to examine various effects, positive and negative effects, have to be more specific regarding, or rather it has to be more generalized. As you have rightly pointed out, that WHO has come up with their own guideline, and based on that guideline, actually Press Control of India has come up with their own Indian guideline on media reporting of suicide. If I remember it correctly, then it was probably in the September 2019 under the chairmanship of Justice Prasad. The problem is that the effect which has been talked about, especially the media has been blamed for the water effect. And it has been seen that suicide attempt, the rates of suicide attempt increases within the first 2 or 3 days of media reporting of any celebrity committing suicide. But as the days goes off or passes, then these attempts, the incidences of attempt decreases. But that suicidal ideation can persist till 1 year time. And the most vulnerable people are generally the children and adolescents, and to some extent the elderly. And the researchers have commented that probably the middle-aged people, their mindset is a bit different and their priorities are different. Therefore, the water effect does not have that much of impact on the middle-aged people or the adults. But still, that responsible media reporting is very, very important. And with these few words, I open the CME for any queries or comments.
Sir, no queries yet.
Okay, great. Then the credit goes to the presenter.
No way. It may be discredit because no.
Because इंतजार के पल में था होता है.
No, no questions are coming up. I don't know how many participants, only 7 or 1?
No, it's 25, sir.
25. That is 7 participants I am seeing.
No, sir, this is, we are only there.
Also, the digital media, I would like to add with Dhruva that the digital media, this is not much research has been still done, but they saying that it is digital media has some positive effect. Also, that you can modify the content once that you know that you have written something which is affecting some suicidal behavior. But in traditional media, once the newspaper or the stories has come, that you cannot change this. So, use of sensational wording or publishing sensational wording, they should be very cautious in newspaper. But another thing I have noticed in this, you said that news portals has been associated with the digital platforms like the social medias. There are, say, if you see by going by the trend in Assam, there is like that day my friend is saying that there is like 150 news portals in Assam, and also day by day, every day there is a one news portal is coming up. And also I have personally seen some news portal who has tied up with through Facebook. They were reporting their news, and recently in my home district they have come up with a suicidal story. In the first day, such digital news portal has published that news, and they are mentioning about the girl where he studies, which school he is was studying, how brilliant she was. Still she died by suicide because of breakup. They are normalizing the, also sensationalizing at the same time normalizing the issue. They are not talking about any mental issues or psychosocial issues which may be there in that person. Though the first two news portal who has blurred her face, but the next day again that same story came in another news portal, and where that person, that's blurring, which the face is showing shown in clearly. And it's so the young girl, So many people, many person can identify, many student can identify with that person, because such a young girl can die by suicide in such age, and such a brilliant. Why I am also at that same. I have the same problem, so it may increase the suicidal behavior. So these are the issues, and also I said that there are very much repetition of the suicidal stories. One stories is running every day continuously, one after every hour. But previously the news items would come, news hour would come at a prime time or in the morning hours. But nowadays, because of the 24/7 news channel, it is coming. The same news is coming every hour. And also they are sometimes there's some new news channel they are using is like the breaking news. Breaking news. You may essentially the event, the breaking news of a celebrity dying by suicide, or some political person dying by suicide, committing suicide. So I think these are very big issues nowadays, because repetition, quite often, very repetition of the news in a day. So, anything you like to add, Dr. Hobo? Any questions? No.
Probably there are no questions now. Till now.
No more questions, sir. Sir, you can stop sharing the slide so that your face is properly visible.
My face.
Yeah,
Mr.
you can
Ginda,
stop sharing
stop sharing your slide.
slides.
I should stop sharing, no?
Yeah.
Stop.
Close
So
the slide.
yeah, the same button, sir, where it is share screen. Yeah.
Yeah, you close that. Yeah, okay. Good.
Ah.
No, okay. That there have been many.
So what to do now?
Yeah.
So there is a red color button where it is written stop share.
Stop shares. So we are
Yes.
leaving, no? Or any?
No, not leaving, not leaving, sir.
The meeting is still not yet over.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay. As there are no questions and queries, I must thank Dr. Ahmed for his brilliant presentation, and Intas Pharmaceutical for providing us this platform to share some of our views regarding suicide, which is a very burning topic. And there have been many issues which needs to be addressed. Of course, there are different guidelines, and researchers have shown that even the media, before publishing any of the news related to suicide, can communicate with any of the mental health specialists, mainly psychiatrists, and thereby they can have a more positive impact on preventing suicide. Else now what we are heading for is that so-called big breaking news will break the psyche or the mental peace of everyone. Therefore, the media reporting is very, very important. As I have already said, that it can act like a double-edged sword, and rather than the water effect, we should focus on the Papageno effect. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants who have been attending this web CME, because I know the time has been quite odd. 4 p.m. is not a proper time for most of the doctors, because during this COVID time, they hardly get any. This is not the proper time to start this. But one good thing is that probably anyone will be able to view this recording till 8 or 8:30. So this is another good thing to have. So lastly, again, I would like to thank each and everyone. Thanks for being here. Big thanks to the speaker, Intas Pharmaceutical, as well as IPS Assam State Branch. Thank you.
Right, sir. So Dr. Michael D'Souza, who is our divisional head, he's also there.
Yes, we have met. Yes.
Sir, you are muted. Michael, sir, you are, yeah.
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yes, now I'm
Yes, sir. Now that I am in. I'm very happy to see you, Dr. Prabhajyoti. Yourself a very established speaker in your own right. I want to thank you, Dr. Mustaq, Amit, because your topic has come in the right time when suicide has become glorified in today's society. And I would say that your message has a very important impact for society. And it is true that celebrating suicide increases this copycat effect. And therefore, it is necessary to have the right guidelines, not to sensitize the issue, but to be sensitive to the positive aspects of the persons and prevent the over-reporting of the same. I think, sir, you have given a very brilliant feedback that even to the newer age of cyberbullying and cyber blackmail, which are the major causes of today suicides. Thank you for opening our eyes and sensitizing the society and us medical workers to help spread the message of sensitivity in these issues. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Dipoja. We always will be supportive to such good messages for society. Thank you so much, sir.
It's been pleasure seeing it or meeting digitally, maybe because last time we met probably in Kolkata, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Answers.
Answers.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, sir, we'll meet physically as soon as this COVID ends.
Yes, because I always say that life is bigger than COVID, and definitely COVID will end one day. And I always say that famous quote of Birbal, "Ye waqt guzar jayega."
Absolutely, sir.
And actually, apna time aayega. Now this is COVID's time, but do remember, apna time aayega.
Sahi, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much.
Wonderful,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Thank you, sir.
Have
Good
a
day to you, sir.
wonderful evening, sir. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Everyone, good night.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
sir.
thank you, sir.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you, Dr. Michael.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you so much.
Gitumoni,
Thank you.
and my dear audience, everyone for your patient hearing. It's nice presenting to you.
Thank you so
with
much.
wonderful. Hope to see more
Yes, sir.
association of this kind.
Yes, sir.
It will,
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir.
it will be
We-
helpful for both the
Correct.
party.
We believe in spreading such kind of good social messages, which is required for society overall
Yes, sir.
development and benefit. Thank you so much, sir. Thank
Hope
you.
it benefited everyone.
Yes, yes, sir.
Then my purpose will be served.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hope it benefits everyone. For
Yes, sir.
the purpose of carrying out this serve.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
sir.
much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good day to you, sir. Good day to you.
Good
Good day,
day.
Dr. Subhajyoti. Good day to Dr. Ahmed. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
Leave কৰিলে হ'ব নে?
Leave.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Chaitil, you can live session. You can switch off the live session.
Okay, sir.